Thank you and good evening. My name is Richard Espinal and I reside about a block and a half from the proposed homeless shelter site on 262nd Street. And I want to thank the community board for the opportunity to speak tonight and for the presence of our elected officials and our community leaders. I'm opposed to the construction of the site, and then much has been said about the concerns over safety and fear of rising crime and diminished quality of life, but I'd like to speak about the homeless men and the future of this neighborhood. I have worked with vulnerable communities for more than 20 years, working and providing services to everyone from undocumented immigrants to homeless people. And if there's one thing that I know to be true, is that the same old way of doing things simply doesn't work. This project is more of the same, but even worse. There's a men's shelter on Jerome and Gun Hill. There's one on 168 and 4 Washington. And the largest men's shelter is on East 30th. All those locations have several things in common. They're near the subway, near hospitals and health services, near food vendors, and a wide variety of social services providers. This location has none of that. This site is at the literal end of a single bus line. According to the Census Bureau, more than half of the residents who live in the immediate area of the proposed site have to commute more than 1 hour to get to work. But I didn't need the Census Bureau to tell me that. My wife catches the bus on 261st Street at 6:30 in the morning to begin her 90-minute commute into Manhattan. There are no medical centers. The supermarkets are at least a half mile away. And in fact, the multiple senior residences in the area have to provide shuttles so their residents can get their groceries. And the only restaurant in the immediate area is actually being forced to close because of this project. There are no other providers or support systems in the area. In other words, these men are being dumped at the literal edge of the city to be forgotten. Shelters are supposed to be a stopgap measure to help people get back on the path to stability, but these men are just being stopped and thrown into the gap. Which leads me to my final point, and if anyone is offended, I ask only for your understanding. This project is inherently racist and classist. For far too long, years of systemic racism have impacted vulnerable communities of color, and the fact that over 80% of the single men in the shelter system are Black and Latino is indicative of the ways in which this population has been allowed to fall through the cracks and denied real opportunities to achieve self-sufficiency and thrive. But instead of actually trying to do what has been proven to work, which is to provide permanent, affordable housing, the city and those that support this project want to continue to do more of what hasn't worked, which is to lump men into large congregate sleeping facilities and close their eyes and hope that some make it out. The city is spending close to $200 million to dump these men at the edge of the city, instead of spending those dollars on real housing with the kind of supports that will put these men onto a path to stability and actually break the chains of poverty for these men and generations to come. And I say generations because this is a 34-year contract. Some people think of Riverdale as a white, affluent neighborhood, and maybe that's true in some parts, but I know that my neighbors are teachers, small business owners, civil servants, retirees. I also know that according to the Census Bureau, the immediate area around this proposed site is majority Latino and Black, and that population is growing.
Thank you very much.
And classist decision would be to ignore the forest for the sake of the trees, failing to see how this area of the Bronx, which is already home to multiple supportive housing projects, is essentially becoming the place where the city puts its forgotten people, the elderly, the disabled, the victims of violence, and the homeless. Slowly but surely, we are being put on a path towards decay. And then they're asking me, my family, my children, my grandchildren of this emerging community of color to carry the burden and expect us to smile and tell us that this is for our benefit because our leaders were too afraid to demand better. And I hope that this community board can demand better and have the courage to expect more and reject this project. Thank you.
Thank you.